Welcome to today's episode of the People of Fishing podcast. I'm Chris Kingree. As always, I will be leading you on this journey, meeting new people that I've known for a little while, and along the way in fishing and through my store, 44 Tackle, and fishing the Bassmaster Opens. Somebody that I have today is somebody that travels with us for the last couple years. Actually, he was on the boater side when I was on the co-angler side, and that was my first year rooming with him. I met him through a mutual friend of mine, Randy Futch, and he's got an interesting story. As many of the people that I've kind of already come across, his story starts from a younger age, doing guide trips on Lake Toho and having a different journey than most. He is now a psychologist by day and fishes the Bassmaster Opens with us. So here's Parker Mott.
Hey.
And thanks for coming, Parker.
Thank you.
So where does this start for you? Where does fishing start for you?
Fishing started for me probably as far back as I can have a memory. I remember my father taking me out on Lake Apopka, Butler Chain, places like that, and he was big into, he was a big crappie fisherman, speckled perch, so, I'd be out there 3 or 4 years old, and it's easier to keep a 4-year-old's attention when you're catching, fish one right after another, and,
yeah.
Crappie was one of his favorite things to do was to eat the fish, so that's what got me into the fishing, and then over the years I got more into bass fishing, mainly because of watching Bill Dance and Roland Martin and all of those shows, and that's what got me into the love of bass fishing. And then I remember, I can come pretty close to remembering the first time I ever turned on the TV to see Bassmasters. And
what episode was that, or what lake?
I don't remember the lake, but Ron Sheffield won the tournament, and he was my favorite angler there for a number of years.
Man.
Yeah, old Ron Sheffield.
Did you watch the Bassmaster Classic that year?
I believe that was also the year that Jim Bitter dropped the fish out of the boat.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so.
Man, that's an important
yeah.
thing there. So now I know this, but not many people know this. What got you to where you're at now? So you started guiding when you were younger. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I started working in a bait and tackle store when I was 12, and then that got me into into high school. I started working more and more in the bait and tackle business, and being around the guides and them getting to know me. And one of them gave me a chance when I was, I believe, 16. He wanted me to take out one of his trips for him, and I did that until I was 18, at which point I started my own guide service, all the while staying in college, because I was around a lot of fishermen, and all of them said, stay in school, this is a tough business, and go as far as you can with your education, and that always stuck with me. I remember several of the pros saying, that they travel 300 days out of the year, and it's a tough life sometimes for them. And so I went to school. My first degree was in business administration. I hated business. I did not like the business aspect of it.
The important part?
Yeah, the important part. I think business is one of those things that you're either good at or you're not good at. The degree will get you in the door if you want to sit in a cubicle for, work your way up the corporate ladder, which was never anything I wanted to do. So at that point, I kind of had to make a choice in my life, and the only other thing I really loved was psychology. I liked helping people. I liked working with people. I liked even kind of trying to figure myself out. And, we all kind of look at ourselves and question why we are the way we are. And psychology provided me that opportunity to look at that. I felt like also to pursue a fishing career, that it's something that I could own a business, I could own a practice, I could take time off to travel if I needed to. And so it seemed like a really good fit to me at the time.
That seems to be the struggle between most people that get into it, and even at the the opens level or the entry level or or qualifying level, I should say, of being able to, one, afford it, two, having the time off for work is harder than affording it. Because I mean, in theory, almost anybody could, fish as long as they've, got a boat that meet the requirements and, are able to come up with the money to fish it. And you can go bare bones and, not have to stay in lavish lifestyle places or, a lot of guys sleep in their truck and things like that. And the big thing is when you have a full-time job that puts food on your table, if you work for somebody else, it requires 6 to 8 weeks off to be able to,
absolutely.
travel. And if you can't pull that off, it's why a lot of really good fishermen, I think, aren't fishing at the higher level that deserve to be there. Is because they want the stability and they're afraid to take the gamble to go full in and risk losing everything.
Oh, absolutely. And I think there's some of the older anglers know it better than us younger ones. I mean, I'm sure they have lists of great fishermen that they've known and met over the years that, just kind of dropped off, disappeared because of the finances or the time obligation and also the stress on the families as well.
Right. Yeah. It's been, there's everybody's got a different background on how they got there. What made you? What told you that it was time to pursue getting back into this?
Well,
and did you fish before? Did you fish tournaments before outside of local clubs and things like that? Did you
Sure.
did you take a try at this before at the qualifying levels?
Yes, at a much lower level. I got into tournament fishing when I was probably 12 or 13, just joining a small bass club, which most bass clubs wouldn't have me because I was under the age of 18, so they couldn't, you couldn't fish for money.
Yeah, most of them are like 16 years of age with a parent or something like that.
I found one that was a great little club. We had like 8 boats, and we fished for trophies. There's a local trophy store that provided us trophies. So I've got a trophy room full of these trophies, and you get your name put in the newspaper. And from there, I started kind of moving into bigger tournaments, started moving into the old Redman series, which is now, the BFLs. And, being a young guy, just making $7-8 an hour, I was racking up a lot of debt, traveling and gas and, going back and forth between Okeechobee and Toho and all of these lakes that's why I decided I needed to kind of, look at really focusing on the career in psychology. And I did. I got out of tournament fishing for a little bit. Anybody who does it regularly knows that you can get a little bit of a burnout from it too.
Yeah.
You get out there, the money, the things don't go right. Sometimes the ego's out there in tournaments. So I got burned out a little bit and got away from it and focused my career on education. But I never feel whole without fishing in my life. So I would fish for fun, over the years. But it wasn't until, just a matter of probably 4 years ago that I accomplished the dream of having become a clinical psychologist and owning my own practice. And I looked around at my life and it just felt like something was missing. And it was fishing. It's a big part of who I am. And I had a friend who, Jimmy Adams, was fishing the Elite Redfish Tour. And at a very high level, and I went to fish with him, just being a marshal and kind of, going on one of these trips and seeing what he did, and it kind of made me think, maybe I could do something like that with bass fishing again. And I came back and started really looking at the finances and the Bassmaster Opens, and felt like, I'd already accomplished one dream in my life, and I wanted to go back to accomplish my originally my first dream. So not many people in life get to achieve one dream, let alone two. And that's what the Bassmaster Opens have allowed me to do so far.
So you said this is your dream. So is this your goal to fish? Is your dream the Elite Series, or is it just to travel and, be able to maintain your full-time job and just kind of have this, and if you win one, it's a good paycheck? Or is it more along the lines of really wanting to qualify for the Classic and everything else?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I think it's something that I'm continually kind of asking myself, that As you know, we both know a lot of elite anglers, and we both know how much time and effort and work it is to perform at that level. And sure, I think, it's if I had the opportunity, I think I would do that, because I will have gotten to that level skill-wise to have been able to qualify for it. And I don't think I would turn something down like that at all. Right now, I'm just kind of being where I'm at, which, on the Bassmaster Opens level, we're constantly learning, we're challenging ourselves, we're growing. So I'm just kind of in the process and enjoying the process and being where it's at and seeing where it leads. I think any of us, our ultimate goal is to achieve the Bassmasters Classic. So, and we have a very close, we are just a step away from doing that. We're a step away from winning one of these. We're a step away from qualifying for an elite series. So I think once I get there, I'll make that decision. But yeah, it's, you just kind of put yourself on autopilot and just go along and trust the process right now.
Now, after the Opens, or after any tournament you fish for that matter, do you see yourself analyzing yourself and your performance a little bit harder than most people might? Like, most people might, when they leave, they've got their head down, they're like, man, I sucked today. Or do you like sit there and really ponder what went down, break it down, and try to think about your thoughts throughout the day?
We're always our own worst enemy, and I'm just, because I'm a psychologist doesn't make me any different from that. I just know how to kind of get through that a little better sometimes. Those long drives home, I call you, we talk for a couple hours on the road. I call other open anglers. So we're all processing our mistakes and looking at what we did right, what we did wrong, what we learned from the tournament. And I think we all see each other grow from tournament to tournament. And I think that's one of the best parts about all of this is the camaraderie that we've developed through these tournaments, and the people that you meet, and the learning and the fishing and the sharing that we do.
Yeah, and I mean, it's funny how I even met you. I mean, my buddy Randy, we decided me, Randy, and Liam were all going to travel together as co-anglers, and then Randy happened to say, oh, by the way, I linked up that my boater link didn't have anybody to travel with. You want to just all travel together? And we were like, yeah, that sounds great. And then, next thing you know, we all roomed together for a year and had a interesting year, to say the least.
Yeah.
But it became like, I mean, the first place we went to, we got that cutting board.
Oh, yeah. What was it? The Nestlewood cutting board.
Yep. So now that's our
trophy.
Our trophy between the guys we travel with when we travel. To different places.
The highest finisher gets their name written on the Nestlewood plaque.
Yeah, it's I don't know. We've got our interesting things along the way.
We do. We have little rituals, and we have traditions that we do, and it's a good time.
So one of the things I think that we do that is one of the cooler things is usually when we travel, one thing that we've kind of picked up on now that there's a group of like 10 guys that go, but I like the idea that, sometimes we all get, like, our tradition on Tuesday night. Usually Wednesday's our meeting day, so we all kind of relax a little bit and don't really go crazy, rig tackle and things like that. So Tuesday night we kind of all hang out and kind of talk about how our practice was. Most of us say it sucked, but
yeah,
we all sit down to dinner together.
Yeah,
or whether it's going out or somebody makes dinner or everybody cooks together. And I think that's a really, really big part, because it's like our home away from home is those guys.
Yeah.
And it, up at the James River for my birthday, there was 15 people that got together for 20 people for that. Yeah. It was awesome.
Yeah.
I can't believe, out of nowhere, you make one phone call and say, oh yeah, it's my birthday night. And the next, there's 20 people over barbecuing. God knows what we got that night. There was all sorts of food going around, but it was a cool experience to really see that on the road, and people help us out in different ways, and even us in the same house. One thing I noticed is, one person might be on something as far as some sort of pattern or whatever, and one guy that's really struggling, they might not give him spots or anything like that, but they might say, hey, why don't you pick this up tomorrow and go give it a try and see what happens, or maybe you should be on the south end of the lake, not the north end, or things like that.
Yeah, just having that support away from home, because we're a long ways from home, and a lot of things can go wrong. And, I think we all we feel safe and more secure when we have each other there to help out with things like flat tires or
we've had a ton of those.
There's a lot of flat tires. There's, Randy helped me patch the bottom of my boat when I hit the rock.
The gel coat.
The gel coat, so we all come together and help with things, and we all, have different experiences and know how to fix things in different ways. So I think that's always been very helpful, and it helps us all, not just the fishing spots, but it does feel like a home away from home with all of us.
So what do you think makes us, as far as who's practicing right, I guess is what I'm looking for in this. So like I look at myself and I take a relaxed approach. And then you've got, like you're up every morning at 5:30 in the morning, 4:30 in the morning, and on top of it, super prepared all the way through. And then, you've got a couple of other guys that are in between there somewhere. But what do you think the right way to go about that is? Is that something that we need to find ourselves, or is there something optimum, like hours of sleep a night, or?
Yeah, no, I have the reputation of winning practice,
right.
With
Mr. 30 pounds on Chickamauga.
Dropping the dirty 30 on Chickamauga and having 2 10-pound fish.
On accident.
On accident in different spots. So, I think we all practice differently, and we all learn how to practice. I know this year in particular, I've taken a lot of your practice strategies and integrated them into how I fish. And it's helped me, in terms of scanning water and looking for things. I'm not a morning person. I think, I'm really not. I like staying up late, but that's not really conducive to getting up at 4 o'clock every morning.
Right,
and,
right.
You're a little more lax. Frosty, David Frost, he's in bed every night at 8 o'clock and up every morning at 4 or 5. And, I think he puts in a full day's work. I look a lot to the elite anglers too, in terms of their schedules. And I notice a lot of times they're not out there on the waters when the sun comes up. They get out there sometimes at 9 o'clock in the morning, and, they may stay out a little later till, 6 or so. So I think we all kind of take in different things. The James River was one of the hottest tournaments we've ever fished, with water temperatures in the mid 90s. And, we would get out early in the morning and fish a little bit. And then a lot of the open anglers, they'd come back in, put the boat on the trailer, go in, take a nap, and swim in the swimming pool, and go back out in the evening.
Yep.
I wish I knew that, because I was out there all day.
Actually,
I didn't know they were doing that.
I can't remember who it was. I think it may have been Guy Aker or somebody like that, and they had said that they were going out at night, and it was funny because they were catching like 20 pounds worth of fish between like 5 and dark.
I think that was Chris Daves or Woo Daves.
Woo Daves, that's who it was. Yeah. But they were going out there after like just before dark and catching huge bags, but they couldn't catch them during the day.
Yeah. I mean, it was a really hot tournament, but that's one that we learned a lot about tidal waters, and I think we learned a lot about practice then too, because I mean, you had the James River is a huge spot, but there was only very small fishing grounds that people were really doing any well in.
Yeah, if I knew what I knew after the first day of the tournament during practice, I may have changed my whole game plan and never rode 60 miles to the Chickahominy.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have done it.
I didn't have fish in the Chickahominy. I mean, I remember, I believe there was also a BFL tournament like the week before.
Yeah,
and they had cleaned out a lot of that place too. So I messed around a couple days, maybe a day and a half in Chickahominy. But for the most part, I looked for spaces that other fishermen weren't at, that I could at least have to myself. And the first day I didn't do so well, but the second day I learned to kind of play the tide right, and I made a good decision and ended up with 12 pounds of fish on the second day. Yeah. But that's just one of those things that you learn from. And
it was one of those things for me. I just asked the wrong questions in practice in our house. I mean, if I would have just asked one stupid question that answered everything I needed for day 2, I probably would have had a whole different day 1,
Yeah.
and done some things different that I would have figured out in practice if I would just ask that one stupid question of, how do you catch fish in a place with no structure when they're not biting on the structure?
Yeah.
And it's really, the answer was catch them in the deep holes. Go to the deeper holes in the creeks and go to the back of the creek.
Yeah.
And
Go shallower was a lot of, and that's Mike
And on
Iaconelli won it by doing
Yeah.
that, going to the very backs of the creeks and just hitting, I mean, he's got a lot of experience on that river. So
yeah, and it was, the other thing was knowing where the tidal fish are going to set up at different tides. And it was on the incoming tide, the fish were at the mouths, and on the outgoing, they were at the backs.
yeah.
The backs of the creeks and the shallowest water you could find, and they were like holding on to the last little bit of water that was there on the way back out.
Yeah.
And if I would have known that, if I would have had that conversation that I had Saturday, or not Saturday, but Thursday night, during the practice, I probably would have gone and graphed more in the creeks and focused more on the offshoots rather than running all the way down there and going, oh man, I'm gonna have a great day, and then get down there and the tide's all wrong the first day, and it was a nightmare.
Yeah, no, it's a long way to drive down there. Plus, I mean, the Chickahominy, you get down there and there's 6, 7 other boats on your spot.
Yeah, you drive 60 miles to have your 100-foot stretch.
Yeah, and that there's only
gold.
3 fish on it.
Yeah. You have 5 or 6 boats just chilling out there, and they're just waiting on the tide. Half of them too.
Yeah.
So when we are able to fish again here soon,
Yes.
looks like Hartwell may be the next one.
Hartwell looks like it's going to happen.
What do you think that's going to lie for us? Hartwell in September.
Oh, I don't know. I completed my pre-doctoral internship up there at Clemson University, and so I have some experience on Hartwell, and honestly, I didn't like Hartwell as much as I like Keowee, which is just north of it. So I'm not I'm not sure how Hartwell's going to set up. I think sometimes it can be, one of the toughest lakes in the nation, and sometimes it's a feast or famine type of thing there. I mean, we had the Bassmasters Classic there a couple of years ago, and they've got a lot of good fishermen up there in that area. Clemson has an excellent college program as well. So I mean, there's so much to fish there. It's not unlike Lake Norman that we've fished a couple of years ago, where you have the boat dock pattern, you have the backs of the creeks pattern, you have the main lake patterns with shoals and drop-offs, and there's a lot of water. I mean, it is a huge lake with all of the creeks and the backwater things that there's a lot of water to cover up there.
Yeah, I heard on big boat tournaments that it actually spreads the field out really, really well, and you don't get as many clusters of boats because there's not really as many community holes as there are. Like if you were to go to Chickamauga or somewhere like that, where you got everybody pounding the same ledge.
Right.
It's more along the lines of a lot of bank fishing and covering water and having hundreds of waypoints to hit in a day. Yeah.
No, and I'm excited for that. I think in some ways it matches up a little bit more like what we can do here in Florida, where you may have a mile of grass, but you find 50 yards of that grass is producing fish. And
the Harris Chain's notorious for that.
The Harris Chain,
Kissimmee grass anywhere in Florida. You can go a mile down there and find one stretch that has 3 5-pounders sitting on it.
So it may set up like that, where it's a spot. You've got a spot, but it also may set up where you find a pattern, that maybe they're on boat docks and, that extend out to 12 to 20 feet of water or something like that. So you've got enough water out there that you can pattern that.
Yeah, in Norman, we found that in practice, we found that, in the mornings, the fish would be closer to the deeper sections of the dock. And then as the sun came up, they'd go back into the shallower portions. So you could go down a line of docks and catch them off the front in the morning. And then in the back, you could just call your shot and go to where the dock connected to the seawall and hit one like every third dock, and you catch a fish there, and it'd always be 1.5 to 2.5 pounds, and it was like that was the difference maker in that tournament.
It's like 6 inches of water back there.
Yeah, they're still eating it.
Yeah, and you're like, there's no way there's a 3-pound fish back there, and you flip a fluke underneath the back of that dock, and they'll hammer it. Yeah.
Yeah. So going forward, do you see yourself, or have you already? I don't know. Have you thought about publishing any studies or working on any studies as relates to bass fishing with psychology?
Yeah, years ago, I looked at possibly doing my dissertation on how fishing affects mood. And what I was going to do was study people's mood before they went out fishing, and then incorporated some of the Central Florida guides to take people out fishing for the day, and then have them come back in and retest them and to see how it's affected their mood. And there's a lot of studies just in general about nature and taking hikes in the woods and things like that, and the positive effects it has on mood. So in terms of psychology, it's there's a lot of potential in related to research and the effects of fishing on mental health.
Right, and we were just talking about this at lunch about what would it look like if because you do hypnosis as well, or
yeah.
And so I was wondering what that would even do as far as, trying to trigger people's emotions a little bit, and I don't know anything of how that works. I'm just guessing here. But what if you were to be able to try to, work on somebody's confidence and make sure that, because I feel like every time I pick up a bait that I've caught a fish on, I feel like I've already got the confidence. But like for me, I have hardly any confidence in throwing a fluke. I know it catches fish. It's like the bait. Like when you start fishing that and a Senko, you're supposed to trick worm or whatever that you're supposed to throw, and that is the one bait I can never pick up and carry for any kind of time. And I know it's a downfall because it's a very versatile bait, and you can dead stick it, you can twitch it, you can swim it. There's all sorts of ways to catch fish on it, but I just, for whatever reason, I can't pick that thing up for longer than 5 minutes.
Yeah, no, I think we all have baits like that, and I think it's good that you pick it up and fish it for 5 minutes at least.
Yeah.
I think there's been many times I've been burned on things like a fluke or a Senko as well, and it is painful when you know that that's just something that is a weakness of yours. I tell, we were talking earlier at lunch that a lot of times it's about having belief in yourself, believing that you can pick up almost any bait and catch the fish or figure out how to catch the fish. I think there's certain baits that we have more confidence in. One thing that anybody who's around me, they know that I'm a spinnerbait thrower. That's not a popular thing to be, as a spinnerbait guy. And, I feel like I can pick up a spinnerbait any time of the year and in any body of water and figure out how to catch a fish. So I think in terms of confidence, one, you have to look back on times that you've had past success on that lure.
Right.
So times in which it's worked for you, times in which you felt good about it. But then also look at times in which maybe you haven't been so successful on things, but have been able to overcome obstacles. So you look at both of those, and then you look at just in general that, okay, maybe I don't have confidence in the bait as much. Maybe I don't have as much success as other guys have had on this bait, but I believe in myself, and I believe that I can pick up a fluke, and maybe I have to dead stick it, maybe I have to swim it, maybe I just pop it across the top like almost like a Zara spook, but I'm going to figure out some way to get these fish to bite off of this. So you start believing more in yourself and your skills.
Right. I remember when I first started fishing, it was to me, I couldn't figure out what bait was to use where, when to use it, dark water, clear water, dark skies, bright skies, all that stuff. And I was reading all these articles, and everything said the same thing, but it still wasn't clicking. And to fix that, I literally went out, took 5 rods, and took the same bait and put it on all 5 rods in different colors. Like if it was crankbaits, it was different depths and colors. It was.
Oh yeah.
And I fished them straight for 8 hours straight, and just didn't have anything else on the line. And that was the way I figured out the little bit of things that I did about where I could catch on this and things like that. And I would go around the same spots. I'd make a rotation and hit the same line with different things every time. And somehow it started to click a little bit. I wouldn't say I'm an expert in any of them anymore,
Right.
but it definitely helped gain a little bit of confidence. But for me, it's even things I've caught fish on before. I've been like, how do you put that confidence in yourself to just jump back on that train to, like, I used to throw a Senko a lot, and I got away from it. And then all of a sudden, like, I don't know, last year sometime, I was like, I need to pick that thing up again. People are whooping my butt in the spring on that.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the way it went.
Yeah.
Going into our first Wednesday nighter this year, post spawn, I remember every tournament on the Harris chain, the person who won big bass always caught it on a Senko, and it was because they backlashed.
Yeah.
That was always the story.
Yeah.
They dead stick a Senko next to a pad, and they, have like an 8 or 10 pounder. And I'm just like, why is every story that? And they weren't false.
No.
And so I picked up this Senko for the first Wednesday nighter, and I'm like, yeah, like 10 feet down the line, I end up catching a 7 pounder, and I'm like, man, there's something to that. So that memory gave me a little bit of confidence to pick it back up again.
Right.
And it's been a little bit more consistent for me. But what would you say? So you said you like to throw a spinnerbait the most. What is your backup when the spinnerbait ain't happening?
Flipping.
Flipping
is it's probably a strength and a weakness. Sometimes your strength can become your weakness because you get stuck with it. And one of which is, for me, is I've expanded a lot more in terms of knowledge of the chatterbait. This year
that was a big one for me, especially the jackhammer. Like, I always threw the regular one, and the jackhammer, I was like, why am I going to pay that much for a chatterbait? And then you pick it up and you catch like 5 fish on it when you just had that other one tied on, you got nothing. And you go, man, maybe there's something to this. And then
there is. I don't know if it's, there's something about the tungsten or the rattle that it does, but the Z-Man jackhammer is just far out exceeds any of the chatterbaits, which, sure, I mean, since you pick up all the chatterbaits, they all look alike, they all work alike, but they will not. The jackhammer will outfish any of those out there.
Yeah, they've all got their places in different things. Like I still like the original one if I'm in really shallow grass. For whatever reason, that one really works well for
see,
short
that's
casts.
confidence.
And then the jackhammer. I mean, jackhammers made me a lot of last minute fish catches, just so that I could salvage a day sometimes.
Yeah. And you'll catch big fish on them too.
Yeah, and all times of the day.
Solid, yes.
Bright skies, everything. Like all the rules don't apply at that point.
Yeah.
But you think that you can get caught in top water and in bluebird skies or
sure. Yeah. No. Going back to your question, we can't be perfect at everything. This isn't a game of perfection by any means. There's more than one way to catch 20 pounds on a lake on a day.
Absolutely.
And some days there's not going to be 20 pounds. It's not a perfect science. And that's sometimes what I get stuck in is my own little obsessive compulsive tendencies of, okay, I have to do this just perfect in order to get this or be on this perfect spot. But, I mean, we hear it time and time again, the bass aren't that smart.
Right.
We're outsmarting ourselves in a lot of ways by trying to chase a dumb fish.
Yeah.
And I think we can't be perfect. We're not going to be the best. You and me will never be the best drop shotters. We don't live in that place. We don't fish that. But we can be proficient in it. We can use it. But at the same time, sometimes you have to take your strengths and really make them work for you and to fit for you. You don't want to get stuck in that pigeonhole yourself in just your strengths because I said, it can become a weakness. But at the same time, sometimes you just have to do what you feel comfortable doing.
Yeah, I when we went to Chickamauga, Glenn Brown told me the most important advice I have ever had, and that like really made me look at things.
Yeah.
And that was when I was going up there, I'm like, man, I think I'm gonna spend 2 days figuring out how to ledge fish. He looks at me dumbfounded. He goes, "You're from Florida. Why the heck would you go ledge fishing against some of the best ledge fishermen in the world?"
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, I just want to figure it out as a backup plan in case the shallow stuff doesn't work. And he goes, the shallow stuff always works.
Oh, yeah.
I said, well, I don't understand. He said, look at my record. I've never gone over 6 foot of water in Chickamauga.
Mm-hmm.
Just you're from Florida, you fish shallow, do your thing.
Mm-hmm.
And those guys may go find a megawatt of fish, but
Mm-hmm.
you're going to have to work harder, but you're going to find the ability to catch those fish.
Oh, yeah.
You can compete. You may not win on shallow fish, but you're going to have enough chances to compete and get a check.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, he made several cuts and things like that up there.
Oh, yeah.
on shallow fishing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went and did that, and I bombed because I didn't think about the other things that happened that tournament, but that was on me. That wasn't on shallow fishing. That was on not paying attention to factors along the way that changed, like shutting the water off. Thanks. TVA.
That screwed up my fish too. All of my fish moved out to those ledges, and I just wasn't a strong ledge fisherman. You know?
And that was your 30-pound practice.
That was my 30-pound practice, man. I went into that Bassmaster Open nervous because I knew that I had an opportunity to win the thing. That's the first time I've gone into a Bass Open thinking that. And I got out there, and those bigger fish moved off. There was just the smaller fish that were in there, and they were few and far between. But I stayed shallow and tried to grind it out because, you know, I fished my strengths. I couldn't go out there and fish those ledges. I didn't understand the ledges, and you know, having been up there and done a little bit of it, going up now, I do better on the ledges. But yeah, that's not what we were trying to do.
Yeah, and sometimes I wonder, you know, if we should just ignore the fact that, you know, we're doing bad in a tournament just to grind out that plan sometimes and just, you know, stick to it and say, look, I'm just going to write this one off now. There's a potential that it's not going to work out, but I'm going to keep on going because, you know, I chose this route and I'm going to take it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, and I think you also have to limit a little bit of the dock talk too. I mean, that stuff really gets in your head.
Yeah,
there's been plenty of times you and me have gone and we've been up there, we've done our own thing, and in the practice we felt good about our practice, and then you go to the captain's meeting the day before and you start hearing all the voices and talk and what people are doing and what.
Yeah, suddenly you tie on like 3 or 4 things extra that night that you didn't have the whole time in practice.
Yeah,
you're like, I'm just gonna put those on just in case everything else spins out, and I feel like by doing that you've already spun out.
You have. No, I think there's times that we have spun out before the tournaments even started. And I remember, I think it was Gerald Swindle's during one of the Bass University things. He talked about how, you know, you hear somebody's catching a fish, fish off of a whopper plopper 30 miles up the river, and you start questioning yourself, and you're going to drive up there and fish a whopper plopper that you've never fished before and water you've never done, or are you going to stay with, the confidence that in your plan that and have fished? Yeah,
absolutely. Mm-hmm. So what are your plans for the future when it comes to just about everything as far as, your practice and fishing and stuff like that? Do you have any future plans going forward?
Oh, gosh. Yeah, my goal is to probably try and fish more. I think with my practice, I work a great deal. I do a lot of things in the field of psychology. My practice is growing where I've added additional offices and more doctors, and I think the plan is to eventually add more doctors and growing in the practice and being able to help people, that I can also, reduce some of the work I do as well, and that gives me the opportunity to fish a little bit more, to travel a little bit more. As humans, we are not, we don't live to work. I mean, work is a means to us living, and I think when people get it backwards where they, live to work and not work to live, right? That their priorities are out of line and their mental health starts to decline. And, granted, we're in the middle of a pandemic, but regardless of that, I see issues with depression and anxiety, the highest it's ever been. And I think it's because we get away from who we are as, quite frankly, an animal. We were born in nature. we were hunters, we were gatherers, we were connected to nature in of itself. And now with technology and how we've progressed and how we've civilized ourselves, we've gotten so far away from that. And I think the further away from nature we get, the higher rates of depression and anxiety we get, because we start to deny ourselves who we are as just a human being.
So when you say that, do you mean that we, as far as, we're still stuck in the mentality that we're going to always try to overcomplicate things, I guess. And I think the bigger part of that is that we will always try to make excuses and, come up with some reason why, I hear it all the time here in the shop too. Oh, it must be nice to fish all the time. Yeah. But truth be told, 60, 70 hours a week, most weeks, devoted to some sort of work, whether I'm in the shop or out of the shop. You can work at home and whatever else for other things. And actually I do a lot of that just to, stay away from the general hustle and bustle to get administrative things done. But it's, they forget about that part, that when I go fishing, sometimes it's like this week I went 3 hours one day.
Yeah.
And it was just because I had 3 hours to spend. And so it's a prioritization thing, that if you make the goal that you're going to go out and fish tomorrow, hit it. And if you don't hit it, try to figure out why you didn't and make that up next time. But yeah, I've realized that as well, that, spending too much time working, sometimes it, you forget that fishing was there, and you go, man, why did I, like, with all the tournaments and stuff we've done, I mean, sometimes it's just work, tournament. And then I hadn't fun fished in like 2 years. It was practice or work or tournament. And, there's always the practice leading up to the tournament, and it was fun. Don't get me wrong. I love it. It's exactly what I like to do for fun.
Right.
But it wasn't the same as back in the day when I'd go out just to go catch a fish. And I think that's one thing that I myself would like to do as well going forward, is prioritize, fun fishing more than just the tournament fishing.
Sure. I think, we didn't get into this for tournament fishing. We got into it because there was a love of a sport there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I'm competitive by nature, so
sure.
I enjoy the ability to, weigh myself against others when it comes to, and it's more of a personal thing, I think, more than, me trying to beat somebody else. It's me seeing where I am skill level wise. I don't go out there going, I'm going to rub these guys in the dirt. I go out there because I want to see where I am proficiency wise, and see if, like I questioned my whole first year on the opens, going, do I belong here? Because, you have a few bad finishes, and then you're man, I've spent all this money this year, and, you've got deals on your back and this, like that. And you're like, did I fulfill what I thought I was going to do this year?
No. And, I mean, this last year was a really tough year for me. And I had all those questions as well. And, and I taped to my depth finder, taped to my Lowrance on my console is a label that I printed out and stuck on there that says, be mindful and have fun. And it's to stay in the moment and remember that as serious as we get sometimes, it's just for fun. Yeah. And I think we have made it at times too serious and too intense. And I've been guilty of being very intense on the lake. And, there's times I've taken people out for fun fishing, and, they want to ride around in the boat and eat sandwiches and swim. And I want to go over here and flip this grass patch for 30 minutes.
This is a bass boat. It's for fishing.
It's for fishing. And, but no, it's all about having fun. And I think I'm going to keep doing this for as long as I can, because for one, people like you, people like Hunter, with all these guys that we hang out with on the roads, we have fun. Yeah. And I think the camaraderie makes up for those trips that are tough. I mean, some of the most fun trips we had are some of the ones that I also did the worst in.
Don't forget #beat Parker, by the way.
Yeah, that's one of our pranks that we do. We always do pranks, which I don't think we probably ought to talk about some of our
No,
pranks that we do
they
on here.
go over the edge a little bit.
But
Let's just say there's random stickers that get put
random
on
stickers.
people's vehicles
Did
at
you
random times.
find one recently?
I did. I found one. Yep, you came over to my house and stuck one on the bumper of my truck. I was really, really happy to find it.
But no, hashtag Beat Parker that was really pretty funny.
Shout out to Jared Albright for that little starting the pot there. So when it comes to the next step, what happens if you go to the Elite Series? What happens if you qualify?
I think the first thing I would do is try and figure out something for the practice. Right now I'm doing a lot of video sessions with, we're all working from home, doing video therapy from home. So I would still have the ability to do some form of work, from the road. And I would think that's kind of what I would want to do. I don't think I would just ever want to get away from the field of psychology. I mean, it's as big of a part of who I am as fishing is big of part of who I am. It's just a matter of maintaining a balance between, the psychology and fishing. And I think if I qualified for the Elite Series, I'd work to get the practice to where everybody was taken care of, and I could still see people while I was out on the road. And I think figure out a lot of the travel arrangements at that point, who I could room with, who I could travel with, and there's no pressure on you, but you have to qualify too, so you can still.
Yeah, I know, to put up with you.
Yeah.
all the travel habits and
yeah.
And I think we all know each other's little things that make everybody tick and all that stuff. So,
but I think that would be a great experience. I think part of it is. I think it would be fun traveling with those guys because I know they have the same camaraderie that our little group has, and those 80 anglers who go out there, they may be closer than we are and that live together half the time. And I think that would be great. It would be great to interact with fans more. I really like the fans of fishing, the people who come up to me, who talk to me about the boat or how the fishing was or this or that. And I think that would be a lot of fun as well, as well as traveling around fishing new waters, new lakes that I've never been to and learning. And I think all that would be incredibly exciting and a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that I wouldn't turn down.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel the same way. It's one time that you get a chance to do it, and how long you stay there is based on your performance after that, obviously. But,
sure.
I think that's something I really want to pursue as well. But I want to thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
Man, it's been fun. This has flown by already. So I could go on for another hour, probably just going on and picking your brain over the psychologies of things. But I will definitely be bringing you back.
Thank you. I'd happy to be back.
So we'll go over more later on down the road. But I'm glad you're able to make it here. And man, this has been, when I started the podcast stuff, we've only done a couple episodes so far, and this was like one of the ones that I really wanted to try and see if we could cement for the future, because you have a really interesting insight on different things that I don't think about on a regular basis, and I'm sure a lot of people don't, or maybe even have the questions too. So that's something exciting going forward. I can't wait to build on this and go a little bit further into depth. And maybe even help other people out, not just myself. It'd be selfish. But where can everybody find you on social channels?
You can find me on Instagram, Parker Mott Fishing, Facebook under Parker Mott Fishing.
All right. It was great having you on. And once again, I want to thank everybody for listening or watching on YouTube. I'll attach Parker's information down below. And if you're listening on iTunes as well, I can put it in the description as well. Once again, with the People of Fishing podcast, you can find me on Instagram at Chris Kingree Fishing, as well as on Facebook at Chris Kingree Fishing, and on YouTube at Chris Kingree Fishing. Thanks, guys, and we will see you next time.